Welcome back to the Reading and Writing Podcast. My guest today is Sonali Dev, author of the new novel, The Vibrant Years. Author Christina Lauren wrote about the novel. I would give this book 5 stars for the concept alone, but it's Sonali Dev's trademark character depth and beautiful writing that really make The Vibrant Years shine. A gorgeous story of evolving female relationships and how love, hilarity, and the bonds between 3 generations of women help them thrive in even the fierce winds of change. Sonali, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, if someone listening hasn't yet heard about your new novel, The Vibrant Years, how would you describe the novel?
It is the story of 3 generations of Indian American women on the dating scene at the same time. So it is. It's the story of a 65-year-old grandmother, a hot grandmother, and a 47-year-old mom, and a 27-year-old coding genius who is developing an app. A dating app, which she has promised in a panic to her boss, and she's never dated. And so she recruits her single mom and grandma. And, they take this journey that is, hilarious in my opinion, because the modern dating scene is hilarious. And so, and they happen to, find themselves along the way. So really, that's what it's about.
That's wonderful. Do you remember the original idea or impetus that led you to write The Vibrant Years?
You know what? I think I might have just answered your question with that last, that last question, because that was exactly it. I just feel like what women are allowed to want and how they're allowed to want it in terms of relationships and how we're allowed to approach our own romantic lives has changed over the past couple decades, like I think no one could have imagined. So my grandmother's romantic life, my mother's romantic life, and mine, and I think every other woman would say this exact same thing, are literally universes apart, right? And so here we suddenly have all of this available to us. And yet, because of the journey we as women have had to make over generations, we haven't kind of caught up with it in some ways, so it's this disconnect, right? Which makes for, which I think makes for great exploration. And I think that's what I was trying to figure out. And so this idea of 3 generations of, women on the dating scene at the same time, simultaneously, was what was the first seed of the idea. But and and of course, friends who are single and all the stories I've heard. How can you not put that in a book?
What was your initial writing journey that led you to writing and getting your first novel published?
So I have always written. I'm not one of those writers who suddenly figured out that I enjoy writing in my adulthood. I think I wrote before I read. Mm-hmm. And so this has always been something that has been, an intrinsic part of me. And I think the harder journey was learning to believe that I could make a living from it, that that other people might want to read this thing that I put my heart into. So that I think started when I was, in my 30s. I have a degree in architecture. I worked as a tech writer for many, many years, and I always wrote. It was part of my day-to-day life. I always wrote. The way I started, but I never thought I would write fiction. And then I had my best friend in India is a movie producer, and she, one of her films had won an award, won several awards. It had done really well. So she was seeing a lot of scripts coming in and was having a hard time finding something that she loved. And, we were having just one of these conversations, and she said, you know what, you like to write. You should just write me a script. And I said, you know what? How hard can it be? I will. and famous last words. It is, as you know, how hard can it be is only someone who has never written a novel can say. And but that was it. And I did, in a matter of, I think, like 2 or 3 months, write her a script. But that journey of creating characters, birthing live people in that way and creating this world and getting lost in it to that level, I think that was for me an instant addiction. There was no getting out of it. And so then I also realized that that really what I enjoyed was sinking deep into it, which you do differently as a novelist and as a scriptwriter. And the way that novelists do it was what really attracted me, and which is to completely clothe it in words. And so then from that moment on, I went checked out every single craft book in my library, took creative writing classes at the University of Chicago, and just really went for it. And I think I wrote the end on my first finished novel, my first complete novel, in April of 2010. Today, actually, amazingly, the day that we're doing the interview is the 8-year anniversary of my first novel coming out. So my first novel came out in 2014, but that journey between, and I sold that in 2013. So I finished in 2010, and after that, and I was literally in a place where I had no idea what happens after that. And so I joined the Romance Writers of America, which back then used to be this amazing professional organization. I went to a first meeting and said, "Oh, I have finished my novel. What do I do now?" And they said, "So have you started querying yet?" And I was at a place where I said, "What's a query?" And so that's where we started. And and many a slip between that and many a revision. And by many a revision, I mean about 500 rewrites on that book. And a lot of roadblocks in terms of, we don't know where we're going to shelve this. Can you change, those protagonists to not be Indian, and, all sorts of stuff that the world was not what it is today in terms of media, definitely in terms of publishing. And we've come, quite a ways, but that was essentially the journey until I pitched it at a conference directly to my editor, and I had an offer, I think, within a week of when I sent him the full book.
Wow, that's great. What has the reception been? Obviously, I know that you are a USA Today best-selling writer. What has the reception been to novels reflecting your Indian American experience?
So it's been a journey, right? Back in 2014, when my first book came out, there was, it was, if not the first, one of the first contemporary romance novels with both Indian characters in print. And so there was a lot of confusion in terms of what to do with it. And so it was, it seemed back then like women's fiction was more a space where people might be open to it. And so it was sold somewhere between those two lines. So we've had a lot of trying to fit it in, but A Bollywood Affair is your classic rom-com. It is like this over-the-top, funny, ultra-romantic Bollywood film in a book. And with that, there's layers of social issues, and it's a child bride's journey from having absolutely no agency to growing into herself. So it was this it's this very complicated book in terms of what it was trying to say. So it did really have, once people, and I had a lot of really successful authors in the genre support it, and I think that it really changed how people saw the foreignness of characters in a book, because it was amazing how many readers would come to me and say, "Oh my gosh, I could relate to Millie so much." And, for me, it was a little surprising to hear that, because, Millie's not a vampire. She's a girl. And the surprise at at relating to her was kind of a precursor to the 8 years that that would follow. But it has, I have a very solid, very dedicated base of readers on a daily basis. I hear everything from um, other South Asian women who, and men actually, who will come to me with absolute joy and emotion for seeing themselves in a book, doing very normal things, including having physical relationships, which they've never seen in what they call such a normal way on paper. And so every little piece of or relationships with their parents, all of that, culturally specific stuff that people that there's something about seeing, on in your stories, seeing yourself in your stories in that way. So I get that, and I get the usual, the absolute human universal journeys. And so I would say it's been an amazing journey, and I feel like I pick up readers every day, and I feel like I'm standing at this precipice, where even more readers are going to reach it day by day. And so it's been great, and I'm
Sure.
very grateful.
That's wonderful. Well, I know that your latest novel, The Vibrant Years, is the first book released under Mindy Kaling's new publishing imprint, Mindy's Book Studio. How was it working with Mindy and her publishing team on this novel?
So it is, to call it anything but a dream come true would be an utter lie. And I'm not quite, as immodest as that. So, when you think about Mindy's journey over 20 years, what we've seen is she's been one of the spearheads for changing the entire experience for diverse creators, right, in this space. And that's one piece of it. The other piece of it is that, personally for me, what I find funny and poignant in stories, she epitomizes that. So to say that I have admired her is an understatement, because that's the exact way in which I want to make people laugh. That's the exact way in which I want to make people feel things, right? So she was such an inspiration in that way, and such the quirk was something that made me feel very normal. So to have her be the particular voice or celebrity to pick my book up, there's something more special than that, more special than just thinking, oh, wow, Mindy has reach and so many people are going to find it. But it was the specific fact that this was a person whose writing I admired so very much. So it's been, just a dream. And, just the way that this particular, and such a demonstration of what we say, right, which is to do the work, and then whether or not the work will land up in the right place at the right time is outside your hands, right? But it can never land up in the right hands if you've not done the work. And so there was that magic where this particular book, it's the first time that I have written such overt comedy and such specific woman's journey. I say that this book is everything I've ever wanted to say about being a woman, at every age that I've been, and how who I want to be when I grow up. And so to have that particular book ready and in place when Mindy was starting this thing, it's just a miracle, and it's been amazing.
That's great. What is your writing process when you're working on a novel? Are you someone who does extensive outlining, or do you just have like an idea of the three generations dating and just dive into the narrative?
So I think I am somewhere in the middle. If I outline at scene level, or if I outline every detail of the book, I can't write, because there's no discovery in it for me. So what I need to know, though, when I start out, is the story. When I say that, I mean I really have to know my characters well, especially in terms of their discomfort. So I always think of any story in any genre as being a character who is uncomfortable with a situation. And then the journey of them finding a way to either change the situation, change themselves, or die trying. I think there is no other story arc. Like that is literally every story. And so those are the things I have to know. I have to know who these characters are, what is causing them discomfort, and and where I want them to end up in terms of the texture of their emotions and how the change has happened. So I do need to know that, and along the way I kind of need to know the big moments when those shifts will happen. But if I start to get more detailed in terms of where they're standing and what they're saying, those details completely stop me. They stymie me. Instead, what I need to know is that in this scene, this is the emotional journey that they're going to have to make, or this is the destruction that's going to happen. And then that the rest of the scene in terms of dialogue and detail happens on the page as I'm writing.
Have you started working on a new novel?
Oh yeah, I'm in revisions. So I am, yes. And so as we, and this happens every single, this is going, The Vibrant Years is my 9th novel. And every time we are, we're promoting the novel, the current novel, our head is already deep into the next one. And you have to make that, that switch. And so, yes, I'm in, my revisions are due in a few days. So I'm very much in revision panic right now and in deadline hell.
That's great. Well, what writing advice would you offer for those who are working on their own stories or novels?
I think the first thing is to always, you have to finish the book, right? Which means you have to write. If I had a penny for every person I know who has said to me, oh, I'm going to write a novel someday, or, I have a novel in the works, or I want to be a writer, I'd be, quite rich. But I think the first thing to do, because it is terrifying, putting your story out on paper, especially if you know that other people are going to look at it, is literally like stepping into your front yard naked, right? I mean, that it takes either a lot of courage or a lot of delusion, or just a really great love for your body. So a story, I think, is exactly that. It's going to be terrifying, but it doesn't write itself. So first you have to sit down and finish it, and everything is fixable. I'm a complete reviser, and I think trusting the fact that I can fix anything, and there has to be something for me to then mold into magic, that intrinsic belief is really that I think has let me write exactly the kind of books I want. Because the first draft is always nonsense. I vomit my first drafts out really fast. So I literally call it a vomit draft. So I think just getting over the fear of putting those pages in, on the page, those words on the page, I think that is that's the greatest lesson, is to get over the fear. And if you're, and I mean, there's this whole other thing where you write afraid, and that simply means no matter how many books you've written, you write terrified, because you're going to fail at this one. Like, there is that. But if you don't walk through that fear, so I think managing your fear is a full-time job when you're a writer, and you have to sit down and get over it.
That's interesting. Well, what novels have you read recently that you enjoyed?
I actually read an early copy of the next Mindy Book Studio book, and I was really blown away. Those moments when you think that maybe it was an accident and, my book wasn't picked up because of how good it is. But after reading this one, I kind of was like, okay, wow, this is really good, because it's a young adult time travel, 80s, just, it's such a romp that is everything. Like it crosses genres and themes, and it's really amazing. So I loved it. It's called I'll Stop the World, but it doesn't come out until April of 2023, I think. I also recently read Lessons in Chemistry, and I don't think I have felt emotions quite so deeply in a very long time and laughed so much. I think voice wise, it is one of the most delightful books I've ever read. There is this, and it's a debut, but there is this incredible confidence in voice. And it is after a long time I've read a book that is omniscient. It goes from head to head to head to head randomly, including there's this amazing dog's POV, and it's just it is, and it's a scientist in the 50s, and again it's a woman's journey, but it is also the woman's journey, that we're all standing here today because that character had the life she had and she made the choices she made. And I think there's something very powerful about that. And of course, the humor is just incredible. Quirk and cynicism and snark, and just seeing the world in this absurd way. I think that's my reading gold. And so definitely Lessons in Chemistry was something I loved.
That's wonderful. Well, where can people find you online if they want to learn more about you and your novels?
I have a website, and it is sonalidev.com. And I am on Instagram a lot, oversharing my, big Indian American life. And it's so that I think is at sonali.dev. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter, and all of that is on my website. But I think Instagram is where I'm most present. And also I have a newsletter. And if you sign up for it, you get a free recipe book. And I do this. It's this thing that I send it out maybe once a month, but I do this thing called the 3 R's. So I send you a recipe, a recommendation, and a really bad joke, because my family does really bad jokes on the family group chat, and I feel like I should share the love.
That's wonderful. Well, again, we've been speaking with Sonali Dev, author of the new novel, The Vibrant Years. The novel is on sale now, so go buy a copy. And Sonali, thanks for doing this interview.
Thank you so much, Jess. It was so much fun speaking with you.
Wonderful.